Captain Dae-ho Kim stood in front of the huge screen that covered the entire wall of the Earth Defense Command Center. The screen showed space above Earth, where alien ships moved like slow metal clouds. But right now, it was showing something that made his stomach turn cold. The Veltharian ambassador appeared on the screen. It looked like a giant lizard wearing fancy robes. Its yellow eyes stared out from the transmission as it spoke in that cold, emotionless voice that all the Council aliens used when they talk to humans. Earth will provide 60% of all rare Earth minerals for the next cycle, the ambassador said. Additionally, 40% of the human population between ages 18 and 45 will report for galactic labor redistribution. This is not a request. This is a requirement. Dae-ho felt his hands ball into fists. Around him, other officers and workers in the command center stopped what they were doing. Some cursed under their breath. Others just stared at the screen in shock. Furthermore, the ambassador continued, Earth's military forces will be reduced by 70%. These troops will serve the Council in frontier conflicts. Compliance is expected within 30 standard days. The transmission ended. The screen went black for a moment, then returned to showing the view of space above Earth. Those alien ships were still there, watching and waiting. Admiral Sunmi Park walked into the command center just as the transmission finished. She had just returned from the Council station above Luna, where she served as Earth's representative. Her uniform was wrinkled and her face looked tired, but her eyes burned with anger. "Did you see it?" she asked Dae-ho. "We all saw it," he replied. 60% of our minerals. 40% of our people. How long have they been planning this?" Sunmi walked over to the coffee machine in the corner and poured herself a cup with shaking hands. "They call it optimization of resources," she said. "They've been watching us for years, studying how we work, how we think, how we solve problems. They decided we're too useful to waste on our own planet." Dr. Min-ho Choi entered the room carrying a thick folder of papers. As Earth's top expert on alien life, he had spent the last 20 years studying every species in the Galactic Council. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "I have the analysis you requested," he said to Sunmi. "It's worse than we thought." He opened the folder and spread papers across the main table. The papers showed charts, graphs, and pictures of different alien species. "Look at this," Min-ho said, pointing to a chart. "The Catherian Empire uses human engineers to build their massive space stations. Why? Because we're creative problem solvers. We find solutions they can't imagine." He flipped to another page. "The Nexari Collective puts human pilots in their most dangerous missions. Our survival rate is 40% higher than any other species they've tested. They call us acceptable loss ratios in their reports." Dae-ho felt sick. "They're using us." "It gets worse," Min-ho continued. "Every council species has natural advantages. The Catherians are naturally good at math and engineering, but they can only think in straight lines. The Nexari have perfect reflexes, but they panic when things don't go as planned. The Zephyrians are incredibly strong, but they can't work together well." "And humans?" Sunmi asked. "We're the opposite," Min-ho said. "We're not the best at anything specific. But we can learn anything, adapt to anything, work together, and we never give up. That makes us the most valuable species in the galaxy to them." The door to the command center burst open. Council Enforcer Hyun-woo Jang stumbled in, still wearing his council uniform. But something was wrong. The uniform was torn and burned. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking. "Hyun-woo?" Sunmi said, standing up quickly. "What happened?" "You're supposed to be on assignment with the Zephyrian hegemony." Hyun-woo sat down heavily in a chair. "They killed the others," he said quietly. "My whole unit. 20 good people." "What? Why?" Dae-ho demanded. "We were ordered to bomb a civilian colony," Hyun-woo said. "Families, children, old people. The Zephyrians said they were harboring refugees who had escaped from their work camps. I said no. I told my unit to stand down." He looked up at them with haunted eyes. "The Zephyrians called it insubordination. They executed my entire unit for following my orders. They were going to execute me too, but I escaped." The room fell silent. Everyone knew that council enforcers were supposed to be the elite, the best humans who served the greater galactic community. They were supposed to be treated with respect. "How long have they been treating human soldiers like this?" Sunmi asked. "Years," Hyun-woo said. "We just follow orders and hope we don't get noticed." The moment we show any independence, any human thinking, they get rid of us. Dr. Minho cleared his throat. There's something else you need to know, he said. I've been studying council psychology for 2 decades. They don't see us as equals. They don't even see us as intelligent life. He pulled out another paper. To them, we're tools. Very good tools, but still just tools. They think our creativity and adaptability are just useful accidents, not signs of intelligence. They can't understand how we solve problems because they can't think the way we think. Admiral Sunmi set down her coffee cup so hard it cracked. Then they don't know us very well, she said. The communication system chimed. President Sujin Lee's face appeared on the screen. She was calling from the capital city. Emergency session in 1 hour, she announced. All department heads, all military commanders, all colony representatives. We're going to vote on something that should have happened a long time ago. The transmission ended. Daeho looked around the room at the others. They all knew what the vote would be about. Do you think she'll really do it? Minho asked. Leave the council, Sunmi said. After what we just heard? After what they did to Hyunwoo's unit? After they demanded 40% of our people like, we're livestock? She stood up and straightened her uniform. She'd better do it, because if she doesn't, I will. An hour later, representatives from every human settlement, every military base, every research station, and every colony ship gathered in the assembly hall. Some attended in person, others appeared as holograms from distant locations. But every human voice would be heard. President Sujin Lee stood at the podium. She was a small woman, but when she spoke, her voice filled the entire hall. For 150 years, humanity has been part of the Galactic Council, she began. We joined because we believed in cooperation, in sharing knowledge, in building a better galaxy together. She paused and looked around the hall. We were naive. The hall buzzed with murmurs of agreement. Today, the Council has demanded that we surrender 60% of our resources and 40% of our people. They want to use us as workers and soldiers while they live in comfort. They want to treat us like property. Her voice grew stronger. But we are not property. We are not tools. We are human beings, and we deserve better. The vote was called. Every single representative voted the same way. Not one voice disagreed. Earth would leave the Galactic Council immediately. As the vote was announced, every human in the hall stood up and cheered. In space stations around Earth, human crews celebrated. On distant colonies, families hugged each other with relief and fear. They were free, but they all knew that freedom would come with a price. Outside Earth's atmosphere, the alien ships began to move into new positions. The Council had been watching and listening. They knew about the vote, and they were not happy. The answer came faster than anyone expected. 3 days after Earth's vote to leave the Council, every communication system on the planet received the same message at exactly the same time. The signal was so powerful, it overrode everything else. Television shows stopped mid-sentence. Radio stations went silent. Even personal communication devices displayed the same image. High Counselor Vex Thari of the Catherian Empire appeared on every screen. Behind the massive alien stood representatives from 12 other species, all of them looking angry. The High Counselor's 4 arms gestured as it spoke, and its mechanical voice translator made every word sound like a threat. Species designation: human. Planet designation: Earth. You have committed an act of unprecedented rebellion against the Galactic Council. In the 3,000-year history of the Council, no species has ever attempted to leave our organization. President Sujin Lee watched the transmission from her office, surrounded by her advisors. She had expected this, but seeing it still made her heart race. Your decision shows a dangerous level of independent thinking that could spread to other species, the High Counselor continued. This cannot be allowed. You have 72 standard hours to reverse your decision and submit to increased oversight. If you refuse, the Council will implement corrective measures. The transmission ended as suddenly as it had begun. Commander Woo Jin Lee, the President's younger brother, was the first to speak. Corrective measures. That's Council language for invasion. Woo Jin had been analyzing Council military capabilities for years as part of his job in strategic planning. He was known for his ability to look at impossible situations and find weaknesses that others missed. How bad is it? President Sujin asked. Woo Jin activated a holographic display that filled the center of the room. It showed the galaxy with thousands of red dots marking Council military assets. Bad, he said simply. They have over 4,000 warships, scattered across the galaxy. Each one is more advanced than anything we've ever built. They have weapons that can crack planets in half and shields that can stop anything we can throw at them. Dr. Hai-Wan Kim, Earth's chief physicist, studied the display with interest. She was younger than most of the other advisors, but her mind worked in ways that often surprised everyone around her. "Show me their ship designs," she said. Wu Jin changed the display to show detailed images of Council warships. They were massive, things built like floating cities, with smooth curves and perfect symmetry. "They're beautiful," Hai-Wan said. "And that's the problem." "What do you mean?" the president asked. "Look at them," Hai-Wan said, pointing at the hologram. "Every line is perfect. Every curve is calculated for maximum efficiency. They're exactly what you'd expect from species that think in straight lines." Walked around the hologram, studying it from different angles. But humans don't think in straight lines. We think in spirals and loops and sudden jumps. We ask questions like, what if we tried the opposite? Or, what if we broke all the rules? Wu Jin was beginning to understand what she meant. "You're talking about Project Exodus?" Hai-Wan nodded. "I've been working on it for 5 years. The Council species dismissed my research as primitive recursion theory because it doesn't follow their mathematical models. But that's because they can't imagine math that changes its own rules as it goes along." She pulled up her own files on a smaller screen. The equations looked like chaos to most people, but to Hai-Wan they were beautiful. While they were perfecting what already existed, we kept asking, "What if there's another way?" she said. "What if space doesn't work the way they think it does? What if dimensions can be folded and twisted and moved around?" Chief Engineer Tae-Min Sun leaned forward in his chair. "Are you talking about moving ships through space differently, or are you talking about moving space itself?" "Both," Hai-Wan said with a smile. "But we'll need more than theory to make it work." Tae-Min stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city looked normal, but everyone knew that everything had changed. "We've been preparing for something like this," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" President Su Jin asked. Tae-Min turned back to face them. "For the last 10 years, while we've been giving the Council their quotas of resources and people, we've also been building something else. Something they don't know about." He activated his own holographic display. This one showed the asteroid, belt between Mars and Jupiter, but it didn't look the way it should. Hidden among the rocks were structures that looked like they had been grown rather than built. "We've been mining the asteroids," Tae-Min explained. "But not just for resources. We've been building factories, shipyards, and research stations inside. The larger asteroids. Everything is automated and hidden. The Council thinks we're just collecting rocks." The display zoomed in on one of the asteroids. Inside, vast chambers held assembly lines where machines built other machines. Fusion reactors provided power, and massive fabrication units turned raw materials into finished spacecraft. "How many ships?" Wu Jin asked. 500, Tae-Min said. "All built using human design principles. They're not as big as Council ships, and they don't have the same firepower. But they're fast, they're smart, and they work together in ways that Council ships can't." He showed them images of the ships. They looked nothing like the smooth, perfect Council vessels. Human ships were angular and aggressive, covered in sensors and weapons that could be quickly reconfigured for different missions. Council species. "Fight like they think," Tae-Min continued. "In formation, following predetermined patterns, using overwhelming force. They expect their enemies to do the same thing." "But we don't fight like that," Wu Jin said, understanding. "Exactly. We fight like humans. We adapt. We improvise. We work together. And we never give up." President Su Jin looked around the room at her advisors. These were some of the smartest people on Earth, and they were telling her that humanity might actually have a chance. "There's something else," Dr. Hai-Wan said. "I've been studying the reports from human soldiers who served with Council forces. Humans consistently outperform alien predictions in combat situations." She brought up charts showing battle statistics. "Council species excel in their specialties, but they can't adapt when situations change. Human soldiers learn new tactics. During battles, we make split-second decisions that confuse alien strategists. The Council has been using our strengths against other species," Wu Jin realized. but they've never had to fight against those same strengths. Outside the building, air raid sirens began to wail. Everyone rushed to the windows and looked up at the sky. High above Earth's atmosphere, more alien ships were arriving. The small patrol force that had been watching Earth was being reinforced by massive war vessels. The ships moved into positions around the planet like predators surrounding prey. "They're not waiting 72 hours, Commander Wu Jin observed. President Su Jin walked back to her desk and activated the planetary communication system. Her voice would reach every human settlement, from the largest cities to the smallest research outposts. "Citizens of Earth and all human colonies," she began, "the Galactic Council has responded to our declaration of independence with threats of military action. They believe they can intimidate us into submission." She paused and looked out the window at the alien ships above. "They are wrong. For 150 years, we have served the Council faithfully. We have built their cities, fought their wars, and solved their problems. We have given them our best and brightest, and they have treated us like property." Her voice grew stronger. "But we are not property. We are human beings. We are the species that climbed out of caves and reached for the stars. We are the species that never accepts that something is impossible. We are the species that always finds another way." She took a deep breath. "Today, we show them what humanity really is. All human forces, all human settlements, all human citizens, come home. It's time." Across the galaxy, humans began to move. Soldiers in council armies deserted their posts. Engineers in alien shipyards sabotaged their projects. Pilots in council fleets stole their ships and headed for Earth. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer serving the Council. They were going to fight for their freedom. In the asteroid belt, Taemin's hidden factories began working at full speed. The 500 ships that had been built in secret were just the beginning. Now that the secret was out, production could increase dramatically. Dr. Hai Wan retreated to her laboratory to work on Project Exodus. If her theories were correct, humanity might not need to win this war. They might be able to escape it entirely, but first, they would have to survive long enough to find out if the impossible was actually possible. Above Earth, the Council fleet continued to grow. Soon, there would be enough ships to turn the entire planet into dust. The countdown had begun. The attack came at dawn. 2,000 Council warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. They moved in perfect formation, like a vast metal storm cloud rolling toward the sun. At the center of the fleet, the massive Kytherian command ship Absolute Authority led the advance. Captain Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Defiance, watching the enemy fleet approach on his tactical display. His ship was one of 500 that Taemin's hidden factories had produced, and it looked nothing like the massive Council vessels bearing down on them. Where Council ships were smooth and curved, human ships were angular and aggressive. Where alien vessels relied on heavy armor and overwhelming firepower, human ships were built for speed and adaptability. Every weapon could be quickly reconfigured. Every system could be rerouted in seconds. "All ships, this is Admiral Sunmi." "Park!" came the voice over the communication system. Sunmi was commanding the orbital defense platforms that surrounded Earth. "Remember, we're not trying to match them ship for ship. We're trying to survive long enough to show them something they've never seen before." Dae-ho smiled grimly. The Council expected humans to fight like other species, in formation, following predictable patterns, using straightforward tactics. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Attention, Earth vessels," came a transmission from the Council fleet. The voice belonged to High Admiral Thexnor of the Kytherian Empire. "You are vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." President Soo-Jin Lee's response came from Earth's surface. "High Admiral, this is President Lee of Earth. We have a counteroffer. Leave our system now, and we won't embarrass you in front of the entire galaxy." There was a long pause before the alien admiral replied. "Your arrogance will be corrected. All ships, begin bombardment formation." The Council fleet began to spread out, moving into the classic bombardment pattern that had been used to destroy rebellious planets for thousands of years. Large ships would position themselves around the target world, while smaller vessels provided cover. But as they moved into position, something unexpected happened. Every satellite orbiting Earth suddenly came alive with weapons fire. Communication. Satellites fired missiles. Weather monitoring stations launched kinetic projectiles. Even space debris that had been floating around Earth for decades revealed hidden weapons systems. Admiral Sun Mi had spent months converting every piece of human technology in Earth's orbit into a weapon. Mining lasers became particle beams. Cargo containers became missile launchers. Construction equipment became kinetic bombardment systems. The Council ships found themselves flying through a storm of unexpected fire from directions they hadn't anticipated. Their shields held, but they were confused. This wasn't how space battles were supposed to work. "What are they doing?" High Admiral Thexnor demanded. "These are not military targets." But humans didn't think about military and civilian technology the same way aliens did. To humans, everything was a potential weapon if you were creative enough. Commander Wu Jin Lee was coordinating the defense from a command center on Luna. He watched as the Council ships tried to identify and destroy the orbital weapons, only to discover that there were thousands of them, all moving in unpredictable patterns. "Phase 2, he announced. That's when the real surprise began. The 500 human ships didn't attack in formation. Instead, they broke up into small groups of 5 to 20 ships each. These groups attacked from every direction at once, using tactics that made no sense to alien military thinking. Some groups dove straight into the gas giant Jupiter's atmosphere, using the turbulence to mask their approach before emerging to attack Council ships from below. Others hid among asteroids and debris, striking without warning and disappearing before the enemy could respond. One group led by Captain Dae Ho performed what would later be called the Luna Slingshot. They accelerated toward the moon at maximum speed, used Luna's gravity to change direction at the last possible second, and emerged behind a group of Nexari destroyers that never saw them coming. "They're everywhere," reported a Council ship captain. "They don't follow any tactical doctrine we understand." The alien ships were built for traditional space warfare. They expected to face enemies head-on, trading massive volleys of fire until one side was destroyed. But human ships fought like a pack of wolves, attacking weak points and retreating before the enemy could respond effectively. Dr. Minho Choi watched the battle from Earth's surface, studying how different alien species reacted to human tactics. His predictions were proving correct. The Council species were individually superior in their specialties, but they couldn't adapt when faced with something completely new. Cytherian ships were mathematically perfect, but couldn't adjust when human. Ships broke formation and attacked from impossible angles. Nexari vessels had incredible reflexes, but panicked when human pilots made sudden, seemingly random course changes that didn't follow any logical pattern. Zephyrian heavy cruisers were incredibly powerful, but couldn't coordinate effectively when human ships attacked their formations from multiple directions simultaneously. The battle raged for hours. Human ships took losses, but they were giving better than they got. Every time the Council fleet tried to reorganize, human tactics changed to exploit new weaknesses. Captain Dae Ho found himself in the middle of the largest engagement when his group encountered the Council command ship, Absolute Authority. The massive vessel was 10 times the size of his ship and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "This is insane," his weapons officer said. "We can't fight that thing head-on." "Then we don't fight it head-on," Dae Ho replied. "We fight it like humans." Instead of attacking the command ship directly, Dae Ho's group began flying in seemingly random patterns around it. The massive vessel's weapons couldn't track targets that moved so unpredictably. Meanwhile, human ships coordinated their attacks to hit the same shield sections repeatedly, overwhelming the alien defensive systems through persistence rather than raw power. "Impossible," High Admiral Thexnor declared. "No species fights like this." "We're not like other species," Dae Ho transmitted back. "We're human." The turning point came when Dae Ho realized that the Council command ship's perfect design was also its weakness. It was so large and complex that it couldn't make quick decisions. Its crew was trained to fight methodical, predictable battles. "All ships, follow my lead," Dae Ho announced. "We're going to do something really stupid." He aimed his ship directly at Jupiter's roiling atmosphere and accelerated to maximum speed. The massive gas giant's gravity well was incredibly dangerous. One wrong move would tear his ship apart, but it also provided perfect cover from enemy sensors. Daeho's group dove into Jupiter's upper atmosphere, using the gas giant's chaotic weather patterns to mask their movements. Council ships couldn't follow. Their large, rigid designs weren't built for atmospheric maneuvering. "They've committed suicide," High Admiral Thexnor observed with satisfaction. But Daeho was counting on the alien admiral's inability to think like a human. While Council sensors searched for debris, the human ships used Jupiter's magnetic field to slingshot themselves back toward the command ship at incredible speed. They emerged from the gas giant's shadow like missiles, moving too fast for the Council ship's defensive systems to track. Daeho's ship fired everything it had at the command ship's bridge. The Absolute Authority didn't explode. It was too well built for that. But its command systems were destroyed, and High Admiral Thexnor was dead. Without their commander, the Council fleet began to fall apart. Different species had different ideas about how to continue the battle. The careful coordination that had made them so dangerous disappeared, but victory came with a terrible price. Just before the command ship was destroyed, it managed to send a signal to the outer edge of the solar system. Planet-cracking missiles, launched hours earlier, began their final approach to Mars and Europa. Admiral Sunmi watched in horror as the weapons struck their targets. Mars, with its growing human colonies, was split in half. Europa, with its research stations beneath the ice, simply disappeared in a ball of nuclear fire. 50,000 humans died in those two attacks. Entire families, researchers who had dedicated their lives to expanding human knowledge, children who would never see their parents again. The Council fleet retreated, but their message was clear. If they couldn't control humanity, they would destroy it. Emergency transmissions from across the galaxy brought more bad news. Council intelligence had identified every human settlement, every research outpost, every ship that carried human passengers. A fleet of 10,000 vessels was being assembled, along with weapons designed to destabilize Earth's sun itself. In his laboratory, Chief Engineer Tae-Min Sun received the most terrifying report of all. Council engineers were building stellar manipulation equipment. They planned to turn Earth's own star into a weapon against the planet it had nurtured for billions of years. The humans had won the first battle, but the war was far from over. In fact, it was about to become much worse. As rescue ships raced toward the debris that had once been Mars and Europa, President Soo-Jin Lee called an emergency meeting. Dr. Hye-Won Kim's Project Exodus was no longer just an interesting theory. It might be humanity's. Chief Engineer Tae-Min Sun stood in the deepest laboratory on Earth, 3 kilometers beneath the surface, staring at a machine that looked like it had been built by someone who was either a genius or completely insane. The device filled the entire chamber. Massive crystalline structures grew from metal frameworks like frozen lightning. Quantum computers hummed with calculations so complex they required their own cooling systems. Energy conduits snaked through the walls, carrying power from fusion. Reactors that had been built specifically for this project. Dr. Hye-Won Kim was bent over a control panel, making adjustments to equations that hurt to look at. Her hair was messy, and her clothes were wrinkled. She had been working non-stop for 3 months, ever since President Soo-Jin Lee had given Project Exodus unlimited resources and priority above everything else. "Tell me again how this is supposed to work," Tae-Min said. Hye-Won looked up from her calculations. Her eyes were red from exhaustion, but they still sparkled with excitement. "We're going to move Earth to a different universe." "I know that part," Tae-Min replied. "I mean, how is that actually possible?" Hye-Won gestured to the complex machine around them. "Council species think about space and time like it's a flat piece of paper. You can move around on the paper, but you can't leave it. But what if space isn't flat? What if it's more like layers of paper stacked on top of each other?" She picked up a piece of paper from her desk and held it up. "This is our universe. Earth is here." She pointed to a spot on the paper. "The Council is also here, hunting us." Then she picked up another piece of paper and held it parallel to the first. "But what if there's another universe right next to ours? Same laws of physics, same stars, but different history. Maybe in that universe there is no Galactic Council. And you think we can just move from one paper to the other?" Tae-Min asked. "Not just. It requires more energy than anything humans have ever attempted. We need to create what I call dimensional anchors all around Earth. These anchors will grab onto the fabric of space itself and pull us from one reality to another. Dr. Min-Ho Choi entered the laboratory, carrying a stack of reports. As Earth's expert on alien biology, he had been studying a different aspect of the project. "I have the analysis you requested," he said to HFY. "The good news is that human consciousness seems uniquely suited for dimensional travel. Our brain patterns operate on quantum frequencies that can exist across multiple realities simultaneously." "And the bad news?" Taemin asked. "Most other species can't do this," Min-Ho replied. "Their consciousness is locked into specific dimensional frequencies. If we pull them across realities, they might not survive the transition intact." HFY frowned. "That could be a problem. We're not the only ones in this solar system anymore." She was referring to the council prisoners that Commander Woo Jin Lee's forces had captured during the first battle. Several hundred alien soldiers and crew members were being held in facilities around Earth. If Project Exodus worked, those aliens would be coming along whether they wanted to or not. "We'll deal with that when we get there," Taemin said. "Right now, we need to focus on whether this crazy plan will work at all." The answer to that question was being tested in space stations around Earth. Smaller versions of HFY's dimensional anchors were being installed on asteroids, space platforms, and even some of the larger pieces of debris from the battle. Each test brought them closer to understanding how to manipulate the basic structure of reality, but it also brought them closer to the deadline. Council reconnaissance ships were arriving daily at the edge of the solar system. Long-range sensors detected massive fleets gathering in nearby star systems. Intelligence reports suggested that the Council was building weapons specifically designed to counter human tactics. But the most terrifying news came from deep space monitoring stations. The Council was constructing something enormous near the star Proxima Centauri. Early analysis suggested it was a stellar manipulation device, a machine capable of destabilizing stars and using them as weapons. Commander Woo Jin Lee coordinated the military aspects of the evacuation from his command center on Luna. His job was to buy time for Project Exodus while organizing the greatest logistical challenge in human history. Every human settlement had to be evacuated. Every space station had to be moved or abandoned. Every ship, satellite, and piece of equipment that humanity wanted to keep had to be brought back to Earth or destroyed to prevent it from falling into Council hands. "Status report," Woo Jin said to his aide. 70% of our colonies have been evacuated," the aide replied. "The Martian survivors are already here. The asteroid belt miners are packing up their equipment. The deep space exploration teams are racing back from the outer planets." "What about the military assets?" "All remaining ships are returning to Earth. We're stripping every useful component from the bases we're abandoning. The Council will find empty shells when they arrive." Woo Jin studied the tactical display showing ship movements throughout the solar system. It looked like a complex dance, with hundreds of vessels moving in carefully coordinated patterns to avoid Council patrol ships. "Any word from our people in Council space?" The aide's expression grew somber. "Some made it out. Others—" He didn't finish the sentence. Woo Jin knew what that meant. Humans who had been serving in Council military forces or working in alien territories were being hunted down and eliminated. The Council was making sure that no human knowledge or capabilities would be available to other species who might get similar ideas about independence. On Earth's surface, the preparation was equally intense. Massive dimensional anchors were being constructed at key points around the planet. Each anchor was the size of a city block and required its own power plant. The construction sites looked like something from a science fiction movie. President Soo Jin Lee visited one of the construction sites and found Taemin supervising the installation of a quantum resonance chamber. "How long until we can attempt the transition?" she asked. 2 more weeks for the anchors," Taemin replied. "But we'll only get one chance. If something goes wrong, the dimensional stress could tear Earth apart." "And if we don't try?" Taemin pointed to the sky, where new stars appeared every night as Council fleets continued to arrive. "Then we definitely get torn apart." Dr. HFY emerged from a nearby control bunker, carrying a tablet full of calculations. "I've been running simulations," she announced. "The power requirements are even higher than we thought. We'll need to channel the entire output of every fusion reactor on Earth simultaneously." "Can the power grid handle that?" President Soo Jin asked. "For about 30 seconds," Haiwan said. After that, we either succeed in shifting to the new universe, or every electrical system on the planet fails permanently. The president looked around at the massive construction project surrounding them. Thousands of workers, robots, and automated systems were racing to complete humanity's most ambitious project ever. They were literally trying to move their entire world to escape destruction. "What are the odds of success?" she asked. Haiwan was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I have no idea. The mathematics work in theory, but we're trying to do something that no species in the known galaxy has ever attempted. We're basically making up the science as we go along." "But you think it's possible?" "I think it's impossible," Haiwan said, with a tired smile. "But humans have a history of doing impossible things. We went from wooden ships to spaceships in less than 500 years. We learned to manipulate atoms and cure diseases that should have killed us. We built cities in space and underwater." She gestured to the dimensional anchor taking shape around them. "Maybe moving an entire planet to another universe is just the next impossible thing we figure out how to do." A communication alert sounded from Taiman's equipment. The message was from Commander Wu Jin on Luna. "Council fleets are beginning final approach," Wu Jin reported. 3 separate fleets, each larger than the force we defeated before. Estimated arrival, 10 days. President Su Jin Lee felt the weight of 6 billion human lives on her shoulders. In 10 days, the largest military force in galactic history would arrive at Earth. Their goal was simple: completely eliminate the human species to prevent other worlds from following Earth's example. "Can we be ready in 10 days?" she asked. Taimin and Haiwan looked at each other. They had been planning for weeks to have everything ready. Now they needed to compress their timeline by 4 days. "We can try," Taimin said finally. "No," Haiwan corrected. "We will be ready, because the alternative is that humans become extinct." Around them, the work continued. Engineers and scientists pushed themselves beyond normal human limits. Construction. Crews worked around the clock. Every resource on Earth was dedicated to one goal: escape. But escape to where? Even Haiwan didn't know what they would find in the parallel universe they were trying to reach. It might be empty space where Earth had never formed. It might be hostile to human life. It might contain dangers worse than the Galactic Council. All they knew for certain was that staying in their current universe meant death. As night fell over the construction site, the sky filled with more alien ships. The Council fleets were so large now that they blocked out stars. Earth was surrounded by enemies who wanted nothing more than to see humanity wiped from Xi. The dimensional shift began just as the first Council missiles reached Earth's atmosphere. Dr. Haiwan Kim stood in the primary control center, her hands flying over controls that managed more power than humanity had ever channeled before. Every fusion reactor on Earth was running at maximum output, feeding energy into the massive dimensional anchors that surrounded the planet. On the tactical display, Captain Dae-ho Kim watched something that shouldn't have been possible. The Council fleet was firing at Earth, but some of their shots were passing right through the planet as if it wasn't there. Other missiles were hitting normally, creating explosions across the surface. "What's happening?" Commander Wu Jin Lee demanded from his position on one of Earth's orbital defense platforms. "We're existing in 2 realities at the same time," Haiwan explained, sweat dripping down her face as she struggled to keep the dimensional transition stable. "Earth is shifting between our universe and the parallel one. Sometimes we're here, sometimes we're there, sometimes we're in both places at once." The effect was creating chaos in the space battle raging around Earth. Human ships found themselves fighting Council vessels that kept disappearing and reappearing as the planet's reality fluctuated. Some alien ships suddenly found themselves in completely empty space, while others faced human defenders that seemed to attack from impossible directions. Admiral Sunmi Park was commanding the final defense of Earth's orbital installations when her sensors detected something that made no sense. Half of the attacking Council ships had simply vanished, as if they had never existed. "They're not destroyed," her science officer reported. "They're just somewhere else." "Where?" Sunmi demanded. "A different universe, I think," the officer replied. "Our reality is separating from theirs, but the separation wasn't clean. Earth existed in a state of quantum flux, phasing between dimensions while the dimensional anchors struggled to complete. the transition. The planet was like a soap bubble floating between two different realities, occasionally touching both. Dr. Min-Ho Choi discovered that some council ships had been pulled along with Earth's shifting reality. Several alien vessels were now trapped in the same dimensional flux, their crews confused and disoriented by existing in multiple universes simultaneously. "The alien prisoners in our detention facilities are having psychological breakdowns," he reported to President Soo-Jin Lee. "Their minds can't handle existing across multiple realities, but the humans are adapting." It was true. Human consciousness seemed uniquely capable of functioning across dimensional barriers. Where alien minds became confused and fragmented, human thoughts remained coherent and focused. Captain Dae-ho found himself fighting a battle that defied every law of physics he understood. His ship would fire at a council vessel, but the shots would hit empty space because the target had shifted to a different reality. Then the enemy ship would return and fire back, but Dae-ho's ship might be in a different dimension when the shots arrived. "This is insane," his weapons officer said. "How do we fight an enemy we can't predict?" "The same way we fight everything else," Dae-ho replied. "We adapt." He began using the dimensional shifts as a tactical advantage. When council ships appeared, in his reality, he would attack immediately. When they shifted away, he would reposition for the next encounter. It was like playing chess on a board where the pieces kept changing color. The breakthrough came when Dae-ho realized that the council ships weren't shifting voluntarily. They were being pulled along by Earth's dimensional field, but they had no control over when they appeared in which reality. "All human ships," he announced over the communication system. "The aliens can't control their dimensional position. They're trapped in our reality shifts. We can use that." Human pilots began coordinating their attacks around the dimensional fluctuations. When alien ships appeared, entire squadrons of human vessels would focus fire on single targets before they could shift away again. But Earth's reality flux was becoming increasingly unstable. The massive energy requirements were overwhelming the planet's power grid. Cities across the globe experienced rolling blackouts as every available watt was channeled into the dimensional anchors. "We're losing coherence," Haiwan announced. "The dimensional field is starting to collapse. We need to complete the transition now, or Earth will be torn apart by the stress." Chief Engineer Tae-min's son was monitoring the dimensional anchors from his position in the deep underground facility. The massive machines were operating beyond their design specifications, held together by human engineering and sheer determination. "Anchor 7 is failing," he reported. "If we lose it, the entire northern hemisphere will remain in the original universe while the rest of the planet shifts." President Soo-Jin Lee made the hardest decision of her life. "Do it," she ordered. "Complete the transition all at once, whatever the cost." Haiwan's hands moved across her controls like a pianist playing the most complex piece ever written. Every fusion reactor on Earth fed power into the dimensional anchors simultaneously. The energy output was so enormous that it could be detected from neighboring star systems. Reality twisted around Earth like a piece of cloth being wrung out. The planet existed everywhere and nowhere, in all dimensions and none. For a terrifying moment that lasted forever, Earth hung suspended between universes while the laws of physics tried to decide which reality it belonged to. On the surface, 6 billion humans felt the universe shift around them. The sky flickered between different star patterns. Gravity fluctuated, making people feel weightless for seconds at a time. The very air seemed to vibrate with dimensional energy. In space, the remaining council ships found themselves fighting shadows. Human vessels would appear, attack, and vanish again as the dimensional barriers fluctuated. Some alien ships were caught in the transition, stretched across multiple realities until they simply came apart. "Unknown dimensional signature detected," came a transmission from the Council flagship. "Classification: Reality Class Extinction Event. All ships retreat immediately. Pursuit impossible." The Council fleet pulled back from Earth's dimensional field, unwilling to risk being caught in whatever was happening to the rebel planet. They had weapons that could destroy worlds, but they had no defense against a species that was apparently willing to tear apart the fabric of reality itself, rather than submit. Commander Woo-Jin Lee watched from his orbital platform as the last Council ships retreated to a safe distance. But his victory celebration was cut short when his sensors detected a new problem. Multiple hull breaches on the orbital stations, his aide reported. The dimensional stress is tearing apart anything that's not directly connected to Earth's gravitational field. The space platforms and satellites that had defended Earth so valiantly were being left behind as the planet shifted to a new universe. Everything in Earth's orbit that wasn't firmly anchored to the planet's dimensional field was being abandoned in the original reality. "All stations prepare for emergency evacuation," Wu Jin ordered. "Get everyone to the surface shuttles. We have minutes before the final transition." Across Earth's orbital infrastructure, humans raced to escape facilities that were being torn apart by dimensional forces. Some made it to the evacuation ships. Others were lost as their platforms simply ceased to exist in Earth's new reality. Dr. HFY Kim felt the dimensional anchors reaching critical resonance. The transition was almost complete, but the stress was destroying the very machines that made it possible. "Anchor stability at 15% and falling," Taemin reported. "We're going to lose the field in 30 seconds. "Then 30 seconds is all we need," HFY replied. She overloaded every remaining system, channeling more power than the equipment was designed to handle. Fusion reactors ran past their safety limits. Quantum computers processed calculations. So complex, they began to smoke. The dimensional anchors screamed with energy as they grabbed hold of reality itself and pulled. Reality snapped. Earth fell through the space between universes like a stone dropping through water. The transition took only seconds, but it felt like falling forever through an endless void where nothing existed except the determination of 6 billion humans who refused to be slaves. When it was over, Earth hung in space around a sun that looked exactly the same as the one they had left behind, but the stars in the distance were arranged differently. The galaxy was similar, but not identical, and most importantly, there were no council ships anywhere to be seen. Dr. HFY Kim collapsed over her control panel, exhausted beyond measure. Around her, the dimensional anchors were burning hulks of metal and crystal. They had served their purpose, but they would never work again. "Did we make it?" President Soo-Jin Lee asked. HFY looked at the star charts displayed on her screens. The constellations were wrong, but only slightly. This was clearly a parallel version of their home galaxy. "We're here," she said. "Wherever here is." And the council? HFY checked her dimensional sensors. The readings showed no trace of the massive alien fleets that had been pursuing them. "Gone," she said with a smile. "We left them behind in another universe entirely." Earth had escaped. But what they had escaped to remained a mystery. This new universe might contain different dangers, different opportunities, or different versions of the species they had left behind. All they knew, 3 months after Earth's arrival in the new universe, Dr. HFY Kim stood on the observation deck of humanity's first deep space exploration vessel built in their new reality. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see something that filled her with wonder. This universe was different. Not dramatically, but in small ways that suggested infinite possibilities. The stars were arranged in similar patterns, but some constellations had extra stars or missing ones. Planets orbited in familiar configurations, but many had different colors or atmospheric compositions. It was like looking at a painting that was almost identical to one you knew, but painted by a different artist. "Report, Dr. Kim," came President Soo-Jin Lee's voice over the communication system from Earth. "It's extraordinary," HFY replied. "This universe developed along similar lines to our original one, but without the Galactic Council. Life evolved differently here. Some species never achieved spaceflight. Others became peaceful traders instead of conquerors." She pulled up star charts on her tablet, showing the locations of inhabited systems that her survey teams had discovered. "We've made contact with 17 different species so far. None of them have ever heard of Cytherians, Nexari, or Zephyrians. Instead, we've met the gentle builders, who create beautiful cities on gas-giant moons, the star whisperers, who use music to communicate across interstellar distances, the crystal gardeners, who grow entire ecosystems inside asteroid fields." Captain Dae-ho Kim entered the observation lounge, carrying reports from his exploration missions. Over the past months, he had led first contact teams to dozens of worlds, introducing humanity to species that had never encountered anything like human adaptability and creativity. "How are they reacting to us?" President Sujin asked. "With curiosity and excitement," Daeho replied. "When we explain our principles of cooperation and mutual benefit, they're fascinated. Most of them have been wondering if it was possible to work together across species lines." He sat down next to Hayawan and activated a holographic display showing one of their recent contact missions. The Crystal Gardeners had been trying to perfect their ecosystem designs for thousands of years. Human engineers worked with them for 2 weeks and helped them solve problems they'd been struggling with for millennia. Not because we're smarter, but because we think about problems differently. Dr. Min-Ho Choi joined them via holographic communication from his laboratory on Earth. Behind him, they could see something that would have been impossible in their original universe: alien scientists working alongside human researchers as equals. "The biological diversity here is incredible," Min-Ho reported. "Species evolved without the pressure of council domination, so they developed in ways that prioritize cooperation over competition. We're learning as much from them as they are from us. But not everything in the new universe was perfect. Admiral Sunmi Park had discovered that some of the council survivors who had been pulled along during Earth's dimensional transition were trying to rebuild their old power structures. Status on the refugee situation?" President Sujin inquired. Sunmi's hologram appeared next to Minho's. "Most of the displaced aliens are adapting well," she reported. "Without their technological superiority and military backing, they're learning to work with others instead of commanding them. But about 30% are having difficulty accepting the new reality." She brought up files showing rehabilitation centers that had been established around Earth. "We've created programs to help them understand cooperative principles. Many are succeeding. A few Catherian engineers have become valuable contributors to our research projects. Some Nexari pilots are teaching our people advanced flight techniques. And the ones who refuse to adapt? They're not dangerous," Sunmi said. "Just lost. They keep waiting for rescue fleets that will never come, or trying to contact a council that doesn't exist in this universe. We're treating it as a psychological condition rather than a security threat." Commander Wu Jin Lee's image joined the conference from the new orbital defense platforms being constructed around Earth. These weren't weapons designed to fight the council, but exploration and communication hubs intended to coordinate humanity's expansion into their new galaxy. "We have a more interesting problem," he announced. "This universe's species want to create a new kind of galactic organization. They're asking Earth to lead it." President Sujin was quiet for a moment. "What kind of organization?" "Nothing like the council," Wu Jin assured her. "They're calling it the cooperative. Every species would be equal. Decisions would be made by consensus. The focus would be on sharing knowledge and resources rather than controlling them." Chief Engineer Taemin Sun appeared on the communication link from the asteroid belt, where he was overseeing the construction of humanity's new industrial infrastructure. "The technological possibilities are endless," he said excitedly. "When species work together voluntarily, innovation happens at an incredible pace." He showed them images of construction projects that combined human engineering with alien techniques. Space stations that looked like living organisms, grown using biological processes. Ships that could reshape themselves during flight using crystalline technology. Planetary habitats that maintained perfect environmental balance through musical harmonics. "We're not just building better technology," Taemin explained. "We're creating entirely new categories of technology that could only exist when different types of thinking work together." Dr. Haiwan had been working on her own project during Earth's first months in the new universe. "I've been studying the dimensional barriers," she announced. "Earth's transition wasn't just an escape, it was an evolution." She brought up complex diagrams showing dimensional mathematics that were even more advanced than the theories that had made Project Exodus possible. "Humans can now travel between realities at will," she explained. "We're not limited to this one universe anymore. We could explore infinite variations of the galaxy, each one offering new opportunities and new challenges." The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just escaped the Galactic Council. They had become something that no other known species had achieved. A civilization capable of existing across multiple dimensions simultaneously. But why us? President Sujin asked. What made humans capable of this when other species couldn't do it? Dr. Minho had been studying that question for months. I think it's because we never specialized, he said. Every other species in the council became perfect at specific things. They locked themselves into evolutionary patterns that made them incredibly capable in narrow areas. But humans stayed generalists, Haiwan added. We remained adaptable, curious, and willing to try impossible things. That flexibility allowed us to develop capabilities that specialized species couldn't imagine. President Sujin looked around at the images of her advisors, each one representing humanity's success in their new reality. Earth was thriving. Humans were making friends across the galaxy. Technology was advancing at unprecedented rates. Most importantly, they were free to determine their own future. There's something I need to tell all of you, she said. We've been monitoring dimensional echoes from our original universe. The Galactic Council still exists there, but something has changed. She brought up intelligence reports that had been gathered through dimensional observation techniques. Earth's escape created a permanent dimensional scar in our old reality. It serves as a constant reminder that species can choose freedom over submission. Some council member species are beginning to question their own situations. The reports showed growing unrest among council species. Worlds that had never considered rebellion were asking why they had to serve the dominant empires. The rigid hierarchy that had controlled the galaxy for thousands of years was beginning to crack. We planted seeds of change even in the universe. We left behind, President Sujin concluded. 6 months later, Earth's children played in parks where human and alien families worked together to create impossible gardens. Above them, ships bearing Earth's insignia prepared for journeys to universes yet undiscovered. In schools around the planet, human and alien children learned about cooperation, creativity, and the courage to dream impossible dreams. They studied mathematics that could reshape reality, engineering that could build living cities, and philosophy that emphasized growth through diversity. Captain Dae-ho Kim prepared for humanity's most ambitious mission yet, a diplomatic expedition to contact parallel versions of Earth in other dimensions. They would share knowledge with alternate humanities, learn from different paths of development, and build bridges across the infinite possibilities of the multiverse. Dr. Hae-won Kim worked on theories that would allow entire civilizations to travel between realities, spreading the principles of cooperation and freedom throughout every possible universe. And in the deep space beyond Earth's solar system, monitoring stations detected something wonderful. The first ships from their original universe. Not council invasion fleets, but refugee vessels carrying species that had chosen to follow Earth's example and escape to freedom. Humanity had not just saved themselves. They had shown the entire multiverse that there was always another way, always hope for those willing to reach for the impossible. President Sujin Lee addressed the new galactic commune.